Hey guys, I've got my balloon here with me today because today's a celebration. Also, I don't have a party hat, so I put this Easter egg on top of my head. I guess it kind of seemed like a party hat. I don't think it's going to stay on this whole bit, but we'll see. Mr. Peterson, what are we celebrating today? I can hear, there it goes. I can hear you guys asking out there. Well, I'm glad you asked. We've got a test. Not today, though. Sorry to freak you out. The test is on next Tuesday. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put my party balloon away, say goodbye to the balloon. The test is next Tuesday. You guys all have the privilege of getting to show yourself and show your teacher everything you've learned about the Constitution this unit. And so I'm going to go over the review sheet today, and your assignment will be to do some sample questions as a way to prepare for the test. But I figured I would review one concept real quick with you guys, because I'm just noticing some students who are getting mixed up with this, and I think if you're still struggling with this, it's going to make a couple of the sections difficult. So let's just review this again real quick. The three branches, okay, the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. Now, I'm going to start at the bottom because I have some handy tricks for the bottom two that might help it be more memorable, okay? The judicial branch is are the judges, right? The Supreme Court and other federal courts, right? They are there to interpret the law. So the law was written by Congress. Then if somebody breaks it, they get arrested, and then they have to go to a trial where the judges interpret whether or not that person broke the law or not. Obviously, there's a jury there too, so on and so forth, okay? Think of judge, judicial, right? They both start with J-U-D. So hopefully that helped you memorize it. Judge, judicial, okay? Judicial branch of the judges, the Supreme Court being the main one, the highest one, okay? Executive branch, that is the president, the vice president, the other executive departments, and their role is to carry out the laws, okay? To basically take action on the things and make sure they get done. The best thing I would have to try to remember that is like somebody who has like a high up position at a company is called an executive, or you might hear about like a hotel or a conference room. Probably not, because I don't think you're going to conference rooms, but there's sometimes they call things like the executive suite or the executive room. Like executive just has this, meaning of being sort of very high up, very high level, okay? And so an executive, in this case, the president, even though really our system is set up to make sure that powers are separated, as you know, he or she is still, oftentimes looked at as like the highest level position in the country. So that might be a way for you to remember it, that executive, we have these other ways in society in which that means a higher up, high level person, sort of the tippy top. So you think of the president as being sort of at the tippy top of the U.S. government. And then legislative branch, that's Congress, okay? But then Congress, as we know, is split up into the House and the Senate. So kind of remember all those things, that the legislative branch, we refer to the whole thing as Congress, but that it really involves two different houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate, okay? And they're the ones who actually draft the laws and then pass them, right? They create our laws. And I don't really have a great way for you to memorize that. The only other way I think of using that term is we talk about legislating things, but that's not a super common term. I don't know how familiar you are with that. Like when you make rules about things, they say you're sort of legislating that. So, but you can at least remember that by the process of elimination, that if you already know judicial, judge, if you know executive, tippy top, president, then you just can hopefully remember, okay, so whoever's left over, Congress, the laws, oh yeah, that must be legislative branch, because we already covered it. Okay, so I'm going to stop share real quick, and I want to pause and quiz you and see if you guys kept that in your brain, okay? So I'm going to ask first, which branch interprets the laws and includes the Supreme Court? Go ahead and pause the video and jot that down in your social studies notebook. Okay, I'm going to assume that you are done with that. You've unpaused it and you wrote it down. That is the judicial branch because it's judges, okay? Now I'm going to ask you, which branch includes the president and carries out the laws? Pause it and write that down in your notebook. Okay, hopefully you got that. That was the executive branch, the tippy top, the high level stuff, the executive. And last but not least, which branch includes Congress and they write the laws, they create the laws. Go ahead and pause and put that in your social studies notebook. Okay, I'm going to assume that you got that one down too, and that is the legislative branch. If you can keep those straight, obviously that's not going to relate to everything on the test, but it is going to relate to a couple different sections, and it'll just help you be able to keep everything together. Okay, let's talk about the actual test itself. So here's the review sheet, and this is attached to the assignment today because part of it's, or your assignment's going to be on this. But just some basics first. It's going to be 20 questions. It's going to be a mixture of multiple choice and short answer. And you can use Discovery Ed, you can use your Anti-Federalist reading, and you can use your checks and balances handout. Because the goal of this test is not to see that you've memorized everything. The goal is that you know how to understand and work with these concepts, right? That's mostly what we're doing in social studies, is you're learning how to think through things and explain things clearly and accurately, right? So if you need to go and look and review the information, that's fine, because the key is just that you can take that information and can you use it, okay? The things that you can't use though, okay? First and foremost, oh, okay, I thought I'd put that second. Anyway, so the first thing I have there is outside websites, okay? We've given you, we have attached, you know, all the materials that you need. Those things, right, that I listed right above: Discovery Ed, Anti-Federalist reading, and checks and balances handout. So we don't want you to necessarily try to go to outside websites. For one, that's typically where plagiarism occurs most. People try to find something to put it word for word. And secondly, honestly, it just leads people usually to get more confused because this test was made based on the materials we have, and if you try to mix it with other information, like I said, most kids get more confused and do worse when they try to just Google and figure things out that way. So just trust the materials you've got and use those. You also cannot get help from somebody else, okay? Whereas if this were like a daily assignment, you could ask me for help. You could get help from a friend as long as they're not telling you the answers, if they're just working you know, with you. If you're in a different classroom at school, you could get help from your teacher in there. But that's practice, that's leading up to this point. But when you get to a test, the point of the test is to say, now we're at the end of the unit. I want to know, what can you do on your own? Okay, what skills have you developed that without any help you can do? Because that's learning, right? You don't know if you fully learned it until you can do it on your own. So just keep that in mind. That's how it's going to be when you take the test, okay? So I've got this review sheet that shows the 4 sections on it, and it walks you through the general skills you're going to need to be able to use to show in order to do well on the test, okay? Notice how each section I tell you what readings will be useful for that section. So I tell you what from Discovery Ed you're going to probably need to draw on. And in this case, you also are going to want to draw on the Federalist and Anti-Federalist reading, okay? Same for all the rest of these. I'm telling you what readings to access to be able to make sure you do well. So that'll be on the test too. So when you're on the test and you get to the branches of government section and you're like, oh, I'm going to have to look some stuff up. I want to, you know, refresh my memory on the information. It'll be right there for you and say, okay, I need to go to 4.3 tabs 2.4. And that's where I'm going to find the information that I'm going to work with. Okay. This stuff really covers pretty fully the things you're going to need to know to do well on the test and the skills you're going to need to be able to do. So I definitely recommend you going over these more later with yourself and looking up stuff that you don't know. So one thing I want to do, we're going to do one more pause. I'm going to pause it, and I want you to actually pull this review sheet up on your Chromebook, and I want you to look through it, and I want you to highlight yellow 3 things, okay? So pick 3 things that for you, you know you need to review the most, okay? Go ahead and pause and highlight the 3 things on that review sheet that you know you need to review the most. Okay, I'm going to assume that you have done that already. So that's really good for you then to know to come back to when you study this weekend to make sure you review those. Okay. I'm going to keep rolling though, because your assignment today is to do some sample questions, which will help you prepare. Okay. First of all, these questions are not the exact questions on the test, because I don't want you to see the exact questions on the test. I want you to practice the skills and then be able to show me on the test that you can do it. But I will say they all show you doing a skill that will be directly used on the test. So basically, these are the skills you're going to need to do. So if you can do these sample problems well, if you work through them, and even if you struggle, if you figure it out, if you get help now, then you're going to be in good shape to do the questions on the test, okay? Now, I'm still only doing 13 sample problems, and there's 20 questions on the test. So again, I'm not saying that this is literally everything that is going to set you up perfectly. That's why I told you the rest of the stuff to know up here. So I highly recommend you still study the rest of that review sheet. But that being said, if you can do this worksheet and you can do it well, then like I said, you're still going to, you know you can do all the skills well. It's just going to be, can you apply it to different types of examples, if that makes sense, okay? So when you do the assignment today, you're just going to go through and you're just going to answer them, all right? You're going to go to number 1. If you don't know the answer off the top of your head, go and figure out which reading it's in. Is it in Discovery Ed? Is it in the Federalist versus Anti-Federalist reading? And go look it up, right? And try to write the answer the best you can. Just write it, type it in right under that, okay? And then go to number 2, and then just do all 13 questions. And hopefully by the end, you'll feel much more confident with a lot of different things you're going to need to do on the test, okay? Like I said, other than that, when you finish the sample questions, turn it in, and then I encourage you to continue doing more studying over the weekend. I would go through here and either just review them with yourself. You can create your own sample problems and try to answer them. You could also just review the assignments you've done, right? That's going to be really good practice because the skills on the test are very similar to most of the things we did on our assignments, okay? The last thing I would say is I'm obviously not going to be able to give you like extensive feedback on the review sheet, just given the fact that I have, 65 students or so. But when I do grade your review sheet, the sample questions you did, I am going to give you sort of the area I would like you to study the most, or review more the most, or continue to work on the most. Okay. And if you ask me more questions than that, if you have some specific other questions, I will get on and I'll answer those. So anytime you show initiative like that and communicate, it gives you that extra advantage, because I'm going to be willing to give you the help you're asking for. But otherwise, I'm going to look at your sample questions. I'm going to give you your grade, and then I'm just going to mark down, hey, this area is probably the area you want to go back and continue to review the most because you struggled with that more than the other areas on the sample questions. Okay, that is all I've got. Looking forward to Tuesday when we get to do test time. Hope you guys are too. Have yourselves a great Labor Day weekend, and I will see you guys next week.